children. What are you doing?
What were they doing in the interview? What was your son-in-law doing? Your son-in-law was doing something way worse.
Michelle Duggar is going viral right now for something people say they've never seen before. Not just a tense moment, but a full on-camera confrontation that feels completely out of character. In the footage, Michelle approaches a paparazzo, raises her voice, points her finger, and repeatedly tells him to leave, while insisting she's protecting children. But here's what makes this moment different. This didn't come out of nowhere, because behind that clip, something much bigger has been unfolding inside the Duggar family, something involving Joseph Duggar, an arrest, and a situation that, according to reports, is now spiraling beyond their control. And if you look closely at what Michelle says in that video, it may actually reveal more than she intended. So the question isn't just why she reacted like that, it's what pushed things to this point. The video itself is fairly straightforward at first glance. A paparazzo is sitting in a vehicle on what appears to be a public road, trying to get a comment from Duggar. He hasn't approached anyone, he hasn't left the car, and then Michelle Duggar walks up. What follows is the part that's now circulating everywhere. She immediately takes control of the interaction, raising her voice, pointing, and repeatedly telling him to leave. At one point, she insists he has no right to be there, even as he pushes back, saying he's on a public road. But the moment that stands out most isn't just the confrontation, it's the framing. Michelle repeatedly says she's protecting children. She accuses him of interfering with kids. She shifts the focus away from why he's there and toward what she claims he's doing wrong. And that's where people started noticing something. Because for viewers who have followed the Duggar family, that language feels familiar. The emphasis on protecting children, the immediate deflection, the attempt to reframe the situation. Except this time, it's happening in real time, on camera, without the usual level of control. And that's part of why the reaction has been so strong. Some people see it as a mother trying to protect her family. Others see it very differently, as a rare glimpse into how the family responds when they can't control the narrative. What makes this even more unusual is that the Duggars typically avoid confrontation like this. They don't approach cameras, they don't engage publicly, they step away, go inside, and let things pass. But here, Michelle does the opposite. She walks directly into the situation, and that shift, on its own, raises a bigger question. What was different this time? To understand why this moment feels different, you have to look at what was happening around it. According to reports, this happened shortly after Duggar had been picked up following her arrest, so the paparazzo wasn't there randomly. He was there for that situation. And that changes everything. Because when Michelle approaches the vehicle, this isn't just a general media confrontation. It's happening at a very specific moment, right as the situation is starting to surface. And instead of avoiding the camera, which is what this family usually does, she walks directly toward it. There's also another detail that stands out. The paparazzo later claimed he intentionally used incorrect information to try to provoke a response, and it worked. But the reaction wasn't just a correction, it escalated quickly. Instead of clarifying, Michelle shuts the interaction down, raising her voice, repeating commands, and shifting the focus back to protecting children. So now you have two things happening at once. On one side, a media interaction designed to get a reaction. On the other, a response that goes further than expected. And when those two collide, it creates something that feels less controlled and more reactive. Which brings us back to the bigger picture. Because moments like this don't happen in isolation. They happen when pressure is already building. And based on what's being reported, that pressure may have already been escalating before this video was even recorded. That pressure appears to center around one key development, Joseph Duggar. According to reports, he's now under serious legal scrutiny, and more importantly, there are claims that he may have confessed. Now, to be clear, details are still being examined, and not everything has been independently verified. But even the possibility of a confession changes everything. Because up until this point, the Duggar family has often been able to manage how situations unfold publicly. There was room to deny, to deflect, to reframe. But a confession, if accurate, limits that ability. And that's where things start to escalate. Because once a case reaches that point, it doesn't stay contained to one person. It can trigger broader scrutiny, additional review, and in some cases, further investigation. So instead of one situation being addressed, it starts expanding outward. And that expansion is where the pressure builds. Internally, it creates uncertainty. Externally, it changes how everything is viewed. Because now the focus isn't just on what happened. It's on whether this points to something larger. And if that's the case, then that viral moment with Michelle starts to look very different, not just as a reaction to a camera, but as a reaction to something that may no longer be contained. As this situation develops, attention shifts to another key figure, Jim Bob Duggar, because for years, the family's public image and internal structure has been tied to his influence. He's been described as the decision maker, the one who manages how situations are handled, both privately and publicly. And for a long time, that system worked. Statements were aligned, appearances were controlled, and the narratives stayed contained. But situations like this test that structure, because when legal developments move forward and can't be redirected, control starts to slip. There are also reports of internal tension, possible frustration behind the scenes, especially if certain developments weren't expected. Now, again, not everything is confirmed, but the pattern is what stands out. Because when a system is built around control, anything that disrupts it creates cracks. And those cracks don't always show up in official statements. Sometimes they show up in moments like the one we saw, a moment that feels less structured, less filtered, and more real-time. So instead of a controlled response, what viewers may be seeing now is pressure. And if that's the case, this situation may already be moving beyond what they can fully contain. As this situation moves further into a legal phase, the stakes begin to change in a very real way, because this is no longer just about public image or media coverage. It starts to involve systems that operate independently, particularly child protection laws and investigative procedures. And this is where things can escalate quickly. In cases involving allegations tied to children, there are mandatory processes that follow. That can include investigations, not just into one person, but into the broader environment. So even if the situation starts with one individual, it doesn't stay there. It extends outward. That's what some describe as a domino effect. Because once these processes begin, they don't pause easily. They follow legal timelines, required procedures, and standards of review. In some cases, that can lead to custody decisions, parental evaluations, and deeper scrutiny around what was known and when. Now, again, every case is different. Outcomes depend on what's found. But the key point is this. This is no longer something that can be handled privately. It moves into a system where decisions are made based on law, not internal control. And that shift matters because it removes a level of control that may have existed before. It also introduces uncertainty, not just legally, but for everyone involved. And when you combine all of that, public exposure, internal pressure, and external legal processes, you start to understand why moments like the one with Michelle happen when they do. To fully understand why this moment stands out, it helps to compare it to how situations like this have played out before. because this isn't the first time the Duggar family has faced public controversy. In past cases, there was usually a window, time to respond, to shape the narrative, to present a version of events that supporters could hold on to. Statements were coordinated, appearances were controlled, and for a while, that approach worked. But what's unfolding now appears to follow a different pattern. Instead of a single issue, this situation seems to involve multiple layers at once: public attention, legal pressure, and internal stress. And when those layers overlap, it becomes much harder to control perception. There's also the speed of it. Information moves fast. Clips go viral instantly. Reactions form in real time. And once that starts, it's very difficult to pull it back. That's part of why this moment with Michelle is being interpreted differently, not just as a reaction, but as a signal that the usual structure, the one that kept things contained, may not be holding the same way. And if that's true, then the focus shifts, not just to what happened, but to what happens next. Because at this point, the outcome isn't shaped by messaging anymore. It's shaped by what unfolds from here. At this point, the viral moment involving Michelle Duggar is being seen by millions of people. But when you step back and look at everything surrounding it, the timing, the reported developments involving Joseph Duggar, and the broader legal implications, it starts to look less like a one-off incident and more like a visible sign of something much bigger unfolding. Because moments like that don't usually happen in isolation. They tend to happen when pressure has already been building behind the scenes. And right now, that pressure appears to be coming from multiple directions at once: public attention, legal scrutiny, and internal strain within a system that has, for a long time, relied on control and consistency. The key question moving forward isn't just how this situation started, it's where it leads. Because once things reach this stage, where the situation is no longer fully contained and multiple layers are involved, the outcome becomes much harder to predict. And as more information continues to surface, the picture may become clearer or more complicated. Either way, this likely isn't the final chapter. It may just be the point where everything starts to shift. If you've been following this situation, I'm curious how you see it. Do you think this moment was just a reaction to the situation, or does it point to something deeper happening behind the scenes? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to stay updated as this develops, you can subscribe for more breakdowns like this.